So Mr. Yao Bing is all yours.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right. Well, you know what? I'm excited to have such a great showing of support from all of you. You know, it's when you have a dual party, right? You wonder if anyone's going to show up, right? And people show up, and it's a bit of a PTSD for me because when I was in the fourth grade, I had a party all set up. And my mother, helped me get all the stuff. We sent out invites and we were ready. It was like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna have a big party, And I'll tell all my friends, the party's gonna be great and cool, stuff like that. And at that time, I wasn't at that age yet because I was talking about there's gonna be girls there. So the day the party happens, right? And look at the clock. No one's coming. No one's coming. Wait, 6 o'clock. No one's coming. No one came. No one came to my party. So I went through all the stages of grief, right? Right until it got to anger and I started making a list. Yeah, Michael, I'm gonna do this to you. I'm gonna do this to you, right? Always the next day I was doing this, right? And then next day I'm filling out my list, checking it twice, and the doorbell rings. We go to the door and there's a couple of my friends with gifts. And they say they're here for the party. Party? We had gotten the date wrong. And so people started showing up and I had to crumple up the list, the kill list, and welcome people in and start to download and enjoy the party. So I'm glad I didn't have to do a kill list. But I appreciate the support from all of you being here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the book before the reading, but I do want to let people know who don't know that a portion of the proceeds from my launches will be going towards our Student Above and Beyond Awards for our students. So thank you for your contributions on behalf of our students, and we'll be sharing that with our students and have an opportunity for them to shine as well. I want to thank the Art House. Yay! I think we're the first artists, first
community gathering.
Community gathering, right? It's brand new space, open, and of course Chelsea and Liz from the Chamber. I said, we've just recently started partnering with the Chamber from our school district to do some initiatives and things like that, and I said, wow, they're really excited people. They want to do some really good work, and they're working with our kids. They're really excited about having the student leadership thing they're doing. And of course, they have an alumni in there, so I said, okay, I gotta go and represent. So I was pleased that they were really excited to support this initiative and have all of you here today. So thank you for the great work you've done in public. I'm gonna refer to my notes a little bit because otherwise I will ramble on. I'd be remiss not to thank, there's so many people I could thank on this journey to get here in terms of, but I have to thank my family, my wife who's always been a pillar of strength, and she's followed me all around the world, and right now she's getting out to work trying to get here, and she'll be here eventually. And my kids, my boys, of course, so they are sort of my inspiration for pretty much everything I do in terms of work and play and everything. So the book is sort of dedicated to them, and hopefully I try to model what I like to see in the world, and hopefully they see that and they can go ahead and lead through that. So thank them, and I know it's being recorded, so they're not here, they're going to be able to see it. I do have another launch in Canada. For those of you who don't know, I'm Canadian. No terrorists, please. And so that'll be a great opportunity to share with my family there as well too. So I talked about getting here. So one of the things, just getting here today to start this, we have the venue and everything all set up. And then I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I gonna wear? What do you wear to a book launch? I've never done that before, right? Been to parties, been to soirees, I've been to all kinds of, I've never been to a book launch as the author. And so I started thinking, okay, the first thing that came to mind, I thought, you know what, maybe I should wear a nice big African dashiki with an afro wig and some beads and stuff and some incense, you know. And then I was like, yeah, maybe not. Then I thought, you know what, authors wear, like, I should have a turtleneck. My wife slapped me in the back of my head, Stephen, it's like 95 degrees. Right, and then I looked in my closet and I got a roll of ascots. And I said, I'm gonna get an ascot out of that. You know, I said, you know what, I'm gonna stick with the penguin suit and just represent. And so here I am, and this is it in terms of the launch. I know some people have been asking me questions about the book, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna wait and kind of just answer some of the frequently asked questions I've had so far is once I told people that I've written a book. And I really didn't tell anybody that I was writing a book. And I was going on this journey in terms of doing it. And one of the questions that people would ask me, where did you find time to write a book? Right? And people were thinking that. Okay. So here's the secret to my success. Okay. One, have a strategic plan around capturing time that's usually wasted. I did a lot of traveling in the last couple of years. You spend a lot of time in airports, right? You get there 2-3 hours before, you know, you have to wait for the plane, all that. So I always had my laptop and my set of materials I needed to work on, and I would take that opportunity to start writing. It got to the point that when you would hear over the loudspeaker, you know, flight 367 is delayed, I'm like, yes, I can finish this last little bit, right? And it really became, and even on the planes, there's lots of capture time. Once you start looking at the dead time you have and be sort of thoughtful about dedicating your time, you can find those spaces, and then you continue. And the other thing I would say is what kept me going is I learned this years ago from somewhere, some author or something like that. They said that always start writing knowing what you're going to write next. So, you know, for those of you when you're back in school and college and you have to write something, you're like, oh, am I going to write, right? So whenever I had a thought to write something, I would start it and not finish it because I knew what I had to do next. So then you'd stop writing. So then when I was going to write again, I already knew what I was going to write. So there's no like, okay, what am I going to write next? Then you keep going. So that really helped in terms of the flow and the process. For me, anyways, it worked that well, and that was great. So I'd be out on my walks. I'd be, you know, thinking about stuff. I'd be playing pickleball with my friend Terrence here, and I'd miss a shot. And he'd go, "Why'd you miss that shot?" And I'm thinking about my book. So it's all connected in terms of how things progress in terms of doing that. I want to stop. I'll give you a chance maybe to ask a few questions, but I want to share a little bit, reading and talking a bit about the book itself, and then we'll leave it up to you if you have anything else that you want to ask. Okay. And I've shared a little about the book because people are going, I wonder what this book is about, right? So I gotta wait to kind of talk a little bit more about it. Maybe you can figure it out a little bit, but the book is actually kind of designed in that way, in terms of being able to have people think and be metacognitive about their thinking. So I got these new things I'm going to try out today. Someone told me they're called glasses, they're assistive devices. And it was recommended I should use it because otherwise I may not make it through. Okay. Chapter 1, Kofi's Journey. In a dimly lit dormitory of a Moscow university, Kofi, a young African student, sat hunched over his desk. His roommate snored softly, blissfully, unaware of his restless thoughts. Kofi hailed from Ghana, which had recently gained independence in 1957. He had come to the Soviet Union to pursue his education, driven by dreams of a better future for his homeland. However, as the years passed, Kofi began to grow disillusioned with the oppressive regime in the Soviet Union. He had been drawn to the promise of socialist ideals, but the reality he faced was far from what he had imagined. The stifling censorship, the constant surveillance, and the lack of personal freedom weighed heavily on him. One evening, while secretly listening to a forbidden radio broadcast from the West, Kofi heard about a scholarship program offered by a West German university. His heart raced with hope. Germany represented a chance at quality education and a taste of the freedom he so desperately yearned for. Kofi knew that escaping the clutches of the Soviet Union would be a perilous endeavor. He meticulously started to plan every detail. He discreetly saved money from his scholarship and a part-time job hidden away in a small weathered suitcase under his bed that had been given to him by his mother as a gift representing future success. The belief was that successful, educated men own briefcases. He had befriended two other African students who shared his dreams of freedom. Ado, who was tall and slender, Samuel, who seemed to know a bit about everything and had connections to the underground network, which would be critical for Kofi's escape. Samuel, of course, was his English name. They all had English names coming from a former British colony. The 60s were time to claim your heritage and identity, but the young men of their country were big fans of Sam Cooke, the famous American singer who had hits like Twisting the Night Away and Change Is Gonna Come. Therefore, they enjoyed the association by calling him Sam, or Sammy. After careful planning, and with a degree of spontaneity, the courage was still high. One frigid winter night, when the moon hung low in the sky, Kofi and two boys embarked on their daring journey. Dressed in layers of clothing to withstand the cold, they made their way through the labyrinth of Moscow streets, avoiding checkpoints and guards. Their first hurdle was crossing the border into East Germany. Kofi had acquired forged documents through Sammy's connections that identified them as East German students returning home. With pounding hearts, they approached the border guards. Then suddenly, Ado stopped, stricken with such fear that he wanted to return to Moscow. This was unsurprising, as he had always been an obedient and compliant young man, and it had worked for him to this point. Why take the risk now? He could finish his program and return to Ghana with a government job. As Ado turned away, the boys had a sense of a lost opportunity and the doomed feeling of a crossroads in their lives. Kofi and Samuel proceeded to the checkpoint, willing to take the risk, and considering what they had to gain rather than what they had to lose. Huddled together, they clung on the forged East German documents. Their hearts pounded in their chests like war drums, their breaths forming icy clouds in the frigid air. Clearly, this was not the climate they were accustomed to. Silence hung heavy around them as they approached the barrier that separated the Soviet-controlled East from the Western world. Kofi's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. What if the forged documents were discovered? Would they be put in jail? Would their accents betray them in further questioning? What would his mother think? She never heard from him again. The border guards seemed to scan every individual with the intensity of a fox, preparing to pounce on a prey, utilizing a scrutinizing gaze that brought your blood pressure to a boil. Their voices shook as they spoke in broken German. This could be it. They barely reached proficiency in Russian, but speaking Russian may out them. Then suddenly, to their relief, the guards would wave them through, as if they were a nuisance, oblivious to their true identities. They continued their treacherous journey in East Germany, traveling by train and hitchhiking. Each mile brought them closer to their destination, but the danger was never far behind. They met with sympathizers through the network who provided safe passage and guidance, navigating the complexities of Cold War Europe. Finally, after weeks of fear and uncertainty, Kofi arrived at the doorstep of the West German University. He presented his identity and sought asylum, hoping beyond hope that they would be granted refuge. Months later, as he walked through the bustling streets of West Germany, the weight of anxiety and oppression lifted from his shoulders. Kofi felt the crisp, cool air on his face and knew he had made the right choice. It was a calculated risk. His intuition told him that potential rewards outweighed the risk. He could now continue his studies in a way that would allow him to pursue his dreams. Like how Sam Cooke said in his song, "It's been a long time coming, but change is gonna come." So, what happened to Sam is a story for another time. Kofi was my father, Robert Nathan Obeng. His African name, Kofi, was given because he was born on Friday, and he made sure to name me Yao, one who was born on Thursday, a child of strength. I try to live up to that. This is a true story, though it was only vaguely told to me when I was a child. Theoretically, this could be one of the first leadership stories that has had an unconscious influence on me from an early age. I've been fortunate in my career to demonstrate leadership in Canada, the United States of America, Africa, China, Israel, and more. I say fortunate, not lucky, because luck can be interpreted as randomly winning the lottery. I am fortunate, lucky, because that is when hard work and strategic experience meet opportunity. People have asked me over the years about my leadership journey. Most of my experience has been in the education sector from pre-kindergarten to 12th grade and higher education at the university level. Working on a range of endeavors in the private and public sectors through various industry sectors has taught me when you see good leadership, you recognize it. You probably know what I'm referring to, whether it's at an executive level with a multinational company, or your favorite sports team, or your local grocery store. One may not be able to define it, but one can organically feel and sense good leadership. As I attempt to respond when asked about my leadership experience, I provide an analysis of how I see the world, my lived experience, and the human condition, which is the interplay that prompts me to make decisions that have been successful for me. I say for me solely because this is one person's reflection based on qualitative and quantitative results. The entire concept of leadership is vast and can be determined based on context and a range of variables. Therefore, my lens to this discussion on leadership has been narrowed to a focus on calculated risk in leadership decisions. My career and life journey has been a series of conscious and unconscious risk analysis and decision making, which has arrived at favorable outcomes, but some are not as favorable initially. Of course, leaders know that there is much to learn and gain from the next analysis of the unfavorable outcomes. Reflection on failure is the best teacher toward future success. So, when I started to write this book to define calculated risk in my career life, I saw Kofi's journey, my father, as the infancy moment that is the prequel to my story. Kofi's journey to escape from the Soviet Union is filled with risky decisions and calculated risks. There are several questions that can be drawn from the journey that we can apply to our high-stakes decisions. What high-stakes decisions have you made that consider these cost-benefit analysis? Okay. So that's the intro to the McCartney thought I was reading a novel. When I was thinking about writing a book, I mean, thinking about writing a book for, I don't know, 20 years maybe. You know, people would say, I'll write a book someday. I always said that, but never really meant it. Then I got to a point where I said, I keep saying that, I gotta do that at some point. But the question was, what is it that you want to write about? And the concept of storytelling is old as time, right? That's how humans, you look at humans all across our planet. Stories are how we pass on information. It's how we teach. You know, in the West African culture, there are stories around the Anansi spider, right? That's if you teach little kids how to do good things and not good things, right? You've got Aesop stories that give lessons, things like that. So I said, you know what? I like telling stories, and those staff members who are here, you're gonna like tell stories. Some true, some, you know, some. I said, so how do I talk about leadership and decision making in a way that I can pass on information through storytelling? So the book chronicles some experiences I've had, and as I said in the beginning, when I started sort of compiling the different stories, I started having some reflection on my own experience, and I thought, wow, and my father's been passed for a few years now, and most of you, if you've had parents who've passed, you know, as time goes on, I get older, I start thinking about some of the things that he told me, and started thinking, oh my goodness, this is what he was talking about. You know, I didn't pay any mind to him. He was telling me these stories, I was like, yeah, whatever, yeah, I know, you did this, you know, right? And you don't think about it, but then in reflection, you start thinking, wow, okay, that is probably the first identified instance for me of really demonstrating courage. And I believe in leadership, there's an amount of courage that has to happen. In order to have any success, you have to make some bold decisions at some point. You have to take some risks. So if you're going to take those risks are best outcomes if they're calculated. And so I kind of did an analysis of decisions I've made and things I think about, and I came up with a framework called CRISP decision, C-R-I-S-P. If you see that graphic back there, it kind of goes through the CRISP decision. And the first thing is clarity of purpose. Really clarifying what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then there's risk assessment, informed decision, strategic planning, and proactive monitoring. So the book is laid out in these 4 chapters, and each chapter has one of the areas. And there's stories that match it in connection to how you can reflect on your CRISP decision. And the book is really designed for the readers to identify your own stories and your own journey and think about your thinking metacognitively, right? In terms of decisions and things that you do, whether it's home life or career life, and to help you do the analysis going forward based on my own experiences and analysis. And so that's how the book came about. I said, oh. And then once I found that theme, I was like, oh, okay. There were some stories I couldn't include in there, right? But I hope you enjoy the journey as you get the opportunity to piece through it. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts about what you read and what you perceive, and hopefully what you learn, not just in the book, but what you might learn about yourself. And I think that was a journey for me. It was a bit cathartic because I got to think about things. And then when you're writing a book, as I said, I've been thinking about it for many years, but it probably really took me less than 2 years to actually write it. Less than 2 years, yeah, probably been sooner if I didn't have some other thing called a job. But it was cathartic because it made me think about stuff. And then when you're doing the journey, different things are happening to you at that time, which definitely influences what you put down and what you write and stuff. So there it is. Calculated Risk, Leadership Lessons and Stories by Yao, born on Thursday. Obeying. All right. Thank you. I don't want to keep you here too long, but I will entertain 1 or 2 questions. If anybody has any questions I have not answered.
Does the rest of the book kind of entail your autobiography along the way, would you say?
Yeah, well, it is memoir-ish. So it's not everything that's happened to me, but every story has an element of me in it, or experience. I don't want to give away too much. But you gotta kind of see yourself. Before I forget, I know I was doing some thank yous, and I want to give some specific thank yous to a lot of my colleagues, superintendent friends are here, support, thank you so much for being here. Got our staff here. I've got some neighbors here, it's great. You know, I've got some enemies here. It's great. Frenemies. So it's wonderful. Any other questions?
I have one, Doc. What were some of your unreadiness and fears that you have in writing a book? And what would you advise to someone like myself that have the same aspirations and someday wanting to write a book? Just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, good. The number one fear was, do I have enough to kind of put down to share with people? Do you have enough to do that? And then once I got into it, it was like, I got too much. Then you gotta be coherent, right? In terms of getting the information down. But I do believe, and I'm talking with my agent about this as well too, that everyone has at least one book in them. Everyone has a story. Everyone has at least one book, and it could be about anything, but everyone has a story that they can put down. And I would say, just start jotting down notes about things you're thinking about, whatever, and then hopefully someday it'll come together and say, oh, okay, there's a theme here. This is what I want to go for in terms of. I will be coming around, and before you leave, so I'll keep it short, in signing your books. There's signatures in the books already, but give you a personal note for me, those of you who are able to sit down. Another question?
And now that this is out, do you have any regrets, any fears, did you leave out, do you regret leaving anything out, or?
I don't know. I didn't leave anything I left out pretty intentionally, right? Because either I'm going to use it for conversations like this, because I've got more stories. I want you to read the book. Or, I hate to say this, another book, but I don't plan on doing that, but you never know, right, in terms of doing that. But no, I don't know. I feel pretty good that one of the things you talked about fears, I didn't want to make it too academic, first of all, right? So, and I wanted to make it an easy read. People could enjoy it, and I tried to frame it in a way that there's something for everyone, right? So if you're someone just wants to hear stories, you got stories. If you're someone that wants to do some real analysis about yourself, each chapter, I have a section called Take Action Now. So when you take action, you have to get a piece of paper out and you look at some of the elements and you try to take action on something that you're doing. So it's great for book study or for leadership retreat. So there,
This is not a question. I mean, I just want to commend you and thank you so much for sharing this, with us and with me. And this is just a delightful moment to be a part of. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And those of you who don't know, that's Lakeisha Briggs there. She is partly responsible for me sitting here on the stage with you. She was the board president on the school district when they hired me to come to Kansas City. And I had some misgivings at times. Like, Kansas City. But she was very encouraging and supportive and said, okay. And I now know that it was the right decision. It was a crisp decision.
Did you take a calculated risk?
Read the book.
So are you going to be available for long chats after we read the book and we come back to you to discuss?
Long chats. Yeah, we define what long means. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, and as he said, he's going to be able to write a little note in your book if you want to do that. So I think we were going to set you up at a table back there to be able to sit down and do that.